Real quick, before we get this started, this video was actually longer than I intended it to be, and so if you just come in to find out which weapon is the best in any certain class, you know that you like shotguns, you want to know which shotgun's the best, or you like SMGs, you want to know which SMG is the best, the timestamps are in the bio, so if you just go down there, you can click it and go straight to the section you want and get through the video at your own pace. I appreciate you being here, and enjoy. What's up, guys? Welcome back. Ace Hunter TV here to talk to you more about Rogue Company. I'm here to break down the best weapons of each class, each genre of weapons. So there's shotguns, SMGs, sidearms, DMRs, ARs, and then there's a single sniper rifle. So, I mean, pretty easy to deduce which is the best sniper rifle when there's only one sniper rifle. So I won't be covering Phantom's LR-15 full body sniper rifle, which is an amazing weapon. I'll make another video talking about Phantom and how amazing she is. But for now, we're talking about the best weapon of each weapon subclass. So if we start off talking about the class that is least used, we're going to talk about DMRs. Now, there are 4 DMRs in the game. Dallas has the Devotion, Trench has the MXR, Talon has the D3DI, and Phantom has the Aaron L212. Those are the 4 DMRs in the game as of now. And to be honest, they're all pretty underwhelming. They can be great weapons at range, but Rogue Company tends to be a relatively fast-paced, close quarters action game, and you don't often find yourself in a situation where you can limit your engagements to medium to long range engagements. So one of the best perks about Dallas's Devotion DMR is a 2-shot headshot from any range, which is fantastic. It's great to use at range if you can actually find a map where you can consistently lock down long range engagements. The Devotion is a fantastic weapon to use, especially paired up with Dallas's ability to see people through walls. But when you're talking about landing body shots and when you're closer up, the Devotion has the lowest DPS of any primary weapon in the game, excluding the sniper rifle, which is a special case. The Devotion has the lowest DPS except for Dallas's handgun. So even when you get close quarters with Dallas and you want to switch off the Devotion to his handgun, not doing much better there. So despite the 2-shot headshot mechanic, we can't choose the Devotion. Now, there's one other DMR out of the 3 left. There's one that has a 2-shot headshot mechanic, and we're talking about these when they're fully upgraded. I didn't test all of them at every level to compare them. I just went through and tested them all fully upgraded to see which one would be the best overall. And this leads me to choose Talon's D3DI as my best choice because it is a 2-shot headshot mechanic up to about 30 meters, and then past that it's 3-shot for a headshot, but you won't be taking as many gunfights from that range because 50 meters is quite far in Rogue Company. The D3DI also does more body damage than the other DMRs on the list, and so even if you don't get to land your headshots, you will be able to finish off an opponent relatively fast and with very low recoil with the D3DI DMR. One thing I noticed with this DMR is that you can hip fire it almost as well as you can Trench's MXR, and that makes it a nice combination of the Devotion's 2-shot headshot mechanic and Trench's fast firing hip fire, which makes it definitely my top pick for DMR. Now, if we move on to talk about the next least used weapon class in the game, we're going to be talking about shotguns. Now, shotguns in Rogue Company, I believe, are relatively underpowered. I think that they could use a buff overall, and this is true for all of them except for one, which is actually a viable weapon choice. Now, I see a lot of people running Shock with the SKL6, and I feel like this is one of the worst decisions that you can make. I'll get more into this when I talk about Shock's SMG later, his D40C, but the shotgun being a close quarters weapon only, and the SKL6 having the lowest fire rate of any shotgun, it's not a nice balance to have. Now, the only shotgun that I would say is worse than that is the Arbitrator, and that's because it is especially punishing since it only holds 2 rounds. Now, it is the only shotgun that can consistently one-pump somebody within 10 meters, but that depends on you being ADS'd and landing a shot center mass enough to get enough pellets to land it and kill him. And you only get 2 shots, and then you reload or have to switch to your secondary, and it's just not it, you know? So then that leads on to Vi's shotgun, the S12 Tactical, which is an okay option as far as shotguns go, but I couldn't ever recommend bringing that over her Nightshade AR, and we'll talk about that later when we get to the AR classes. But definitely the best shotgun in the game right now, without a doubt, is Lancer's 8x10 Striker. I literally couldn't even get proper game footage of any shotgun besides the Striker. It is a full auto shotgun, and when compared with every weapon in the game within the Striker's range, which is 8 meters at max, it is the highest DPS weapon in the game. The highest. It will melt opponents. Especially with it being full auto, you'll really be able to manage yourself in close quarters engagements. Now, it comes as no surprise that the shotgun is only effective at close range, and Lancer actually is probably going to be the best operator to get close range with because of her silent speed boost, and because her roll to reload. Lancer's probably the only rogue that I could see you viably running a shotgun on and consistently winning games at a competitive level. Of course, you can run the SKL6 on shock as much as you want, and you could get kills with it, of course, but as the game progresses, it becomes more competitive. It's definitely going to fall deeper off, and you'll be punished for it. You're literally better off using Shock's secondary SMG, which we can get into now. We'll talk about the sidearms in the game. Alright, so we're talking about handguns now, and there are 5 handguns in the game that belong to different rogues. The one that most rogues have is the Executioner. This is the Deagle type handgun that belongs to Anvil, Vi, Dima, Glitch, Saint, and Trench. A lot of the rogues have this gun, and it is, in my opinion, the second best handgun in the game. But we're going to talk about the worst. First, I think, is the P12K. The P12K belongs to Phantom and Talon. I wouldn't even describe it as a bad sidearm. It is still a good sidearm, and you can get a lot of kills with it. However, as far as how it is compared with the other sidearms, it really is lackluster in one area or another. So I'm gonna settle on the P12K is the worst handgun. Now, this sucks for Talon specifically because he does have, in my opinion, the best DMR in the game. So for him to have a fantastic DMR as a choice and then not have a sidearm to pick up those close range battles, really quite unfortunate for him as a rogue. But we'll get more into rogues in another video. Right now, we're just talking about the weapons. We kind of mentioned Dallas's revolver before, the LW6 revolver, and it does have a 2-shot headshot mechanic from up to 20 meters, as long as you have increased the max damage range in the perks, which is fantastic to have on a pistol, especially early game. One of the biggest problems with it is it only has 6 rounds, and that is not upgradable. Almost like it's a revolver. So that can make it quite frustrating to get into gunfights where you're landing body shots, or you're fighting multiple rogues, or you're downing people and then having to keep fighting, and you're running out of ammo way faster than everybody else. And also, if you're landing body shots with the revolver, you're doing the lowest DPS in the game that you can do with any gun. So it's kind of top tier if you land your headshots, and really pretty low on the totem pole if you're not landing your headshots. The Executioner we kind of talked about a little bit before. It is a high damage, kind of low fire rate handgun. It is the Deagle type gun that most rogues have. It also has one of the highest ranges of any handgun, the range of 15, which is second to the LW6 revolver on Dallas, which has a range of 16, which makes the Executioner overall a pretty reliable choice. Not the best, not the worst, definitely a good go-to. So that leads us to talk about the next weapon in line, and that is Torch's A3 Salvo, which is a fantastic sidearm. It is a burst fire sidearm, which actually makes it kind of hard for me to track at proper DPS and time to kill at range. For this one, I just took in what the game said in the stats screen, and based off of that, it has one of the lowest DPSs out of all of the handguns. However, in practicality, it does have an incredibly fast time to kill. So I'm going to have to find different ways to test this to get real solid results and to actually see on paper how well it can stack up against all the other weapons. Now, it has a bit of a shorter range than the other weapons in the game at 12 meters. However, it has the highest handling and the highest round capacity out of any of the handguns, which makes it very useful. As well as it being burst, makes it easy to land rapid, successful headshots, and all of that paired with Scorch's ability to do lasting damage makes that salvo an even more viable option. It was difficult for me to not choose this one as the best sidearm, but when I'm only talking about just the weapons and I don't have all the facts about the salvo, I can't for sure say that it is the best. So the handgun best pick is interesting between the Salvo and the Spitfire, but the pick goes to the Spitfire as the best handgun, in my opinion, in the game. And the Spitfire is actually an extraordinarily viable gun with a DPS of 160, which places it in the top 10 of all weapons in Rogue Company. There are 25 currently weapons in Rogue Company, and this handgun makes it in the top 10. So with that kind of DPS on a sidearm, of course you're going to have a lower range of 8, which makes it a very much a close quarters weapon. However, is an incredibly consistent weapon at range. Now once we get to 20 and 25 meters, it underperforms versus the other weapons, but once you get to 50 meters, it's somehow the best performing sidearm at 50 meters and plus range. It doesn't make sense, but just something interesting to note about the Spitfire. Anyway, its fire rate of 10 blows any other sidearm out of the park, and it is just an incredibly useful close quarters weapon. There is actually an achievement in game to win a match without ever buying a primary weapon, and I did this in one try with the Spitfire. It is just that good of a weapon. Anyway, moving on to some of the more exciting stuff, time to talk about the SMGs in the game. Now these are probably the most commonly used weapons in the game, and the most exciting and fun to use. Now the other 5 SMGs on the list make it into the top 7 weapons in Rogue Company. That's 5 of the 7 top highest DPS weapons in the game are SMGs. It's a very, very viable option. The other 2 weapons in the top 7 that aren't SMGs are Striker's 8x10 shotgun and the MLX Maw LMG that belongs to Anvil. The rest are SMGs, baby. Now, of course, this comes from short ranges as well, lots of damage fall off, but Rogue Company, generally a close quarters game, so a lot of your gunfights are going to be happening right in front of each other, and with the SMG, you got a power move, you got a power play right there, and it's very helpful to have some of the best guns in the game when you're close quarters, as you will be in most of your gunfights. So a lot of the SMGs have similar ranges and damage fall off at range, so there's not much to talk about there, but close range, a lot of the SMGs, that's where they operate, that's where you need them to work. So the most important thing here is DPS, and so lowest on the totem pole is the HRM24S. That belongs to Lancer. Now remember, Lancer has the best secondary and the best shotgun in the game, so it's not super surprising that she would get the lowest on the totem pole as far as SMGs go, so I wouldn't be too concerned for her on that regard. And it is by no means that this is a bad weapon, because it is still top 7 choices for highest DPS in the game. Now the next 2 SMGs I'd like to compare are the D40C and the LMPX. This belongs to Shock and then Glitch and Talon respectively. Something I found very interesting about these 2 weapons in testing is that the D40C has a DPS of 173.29. The LMPX has a DPS of 173.92. The D40C has a range of 11, and the LMPX has a range of 12.5. However, in testing, the D40C always had a faster time to kill at every range tested. It didn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but it's what happens. So that leaves me to choose the D40C as the second best option in the game as far as SMGs go. Now the best option, and this is the second highest DPS weapon in the game, is the SLC that belongs to Ronin and Scorch. Does a damage of 12 with a fire rate of 15. The fastest fire rate of any SMG, the fastest fire rate of any gun in the game. Now this makes it extraordinarily useful in close quarters, high-speed combat. It has the absolute fastest time to kill at 5 meters of any weapon in the game. However, with a range of 8.5, once you get past that, it really starts to fall off, and it has a lot of recoil, and definitely only meant for close quarters combat. So if you really want the highest DPS gun in the game for close quarters combat that's not a shotgun, then the SLC is your gun. You can find it on Ronin and Scorch. Both are very good rogues. Just know that at range, it is very difficult to use. Which leads us to the final class of weapons to talk about, the AR class, the assault rifle class. There are 4 weapons in this class. One is the HRM-30KS that belongs to Dallas and Trench. Next is the MLX Mark IV that belongs to Saint. Then we have the KA-30 that belongs to Ronin and Dima. And then finally we have the Nightshade that belongs to Vi. So probably the worst of all the ARs is the HRM-30KS, which happens to be my personally most used. It operates more as a DMR with the fact that it has a low fire rate of 6.06, but it has very low recoil when it's fully upgraded. So I tend to tap fire this weapon a lot and use it more as a cross between a DMR and an AR than anything. It is a much lower DPS than what we've been looking at 145.44, but it has good range as far as the ARs go at 23. With the only AR that has higher range being the MLX Mark IV, which has a range of 26. Now this MLX Mark IV that belongs to Saint is better than the HRM in almost every way. It has a slightly lower reload time and it does slightly less damage, but overall it does more DPS, has better range, better handling, better time to kill at every range, and is a very, very viable option for the Saint players. Now, God bless the Saint players, those guys who always come in and revive you when you need it. Oh my lord, I love a good Saint player, man. I do. We're going to talk about rogues in the next video. I got to. So the next weapon in the list that I mentioned is the KA-30. Now this belongs to Dima and Ronin. It's a little bit higher of a DPS at 155.8. Has a lower range of 18. But when you think about this in aspects to the game and how often you're fighting at what ranges, 18 is a really good range to have on a weapon. And that's why this one has the fastest time to kill at 20 meters. It slows down a little bit further beyond that, and it's not the best close up, but at about 20 meters the KA-30 is the best performing AR in the game. And that leads us to the Nightshade on Vi. This gun is exclusive to Vi, and wow, this gun is impressive. This AR was the easiest choice for me to make as far as weapons in their classes being the best. Actually, the Striker was super easy to decide on. This one, second easiest choice to make, was the Nightshade on Vi. This gun has the highest DPS of any ARs at 158.4. It does have the lowest range of 15, however it can be upgraded to 18, which makes it a very viable assault rifle. When you're sending DPS of 158.4 down to a max of 18 meters, that's effective. It is incredibly consistent even at ranges beyond that. The damage fall off is not very steep. And the Nightshade having a 9.9 fire rate, it operates more like an SMG with extended range. It's a brilliant cross between the SMGs and the ARs, and is, in my opinion, one of the best, most versatile guns in the game. If you haven't played Vi and used her Nightshade, I would highly recommend it. And so that's it for the ARs, and then the only other class that I haven't talked about is the LMG class, which holds the MLX Maw that belongs to Anvil. Now this gun on paper should look like one of the best guns in the game, with the third highest DPS in the game behind the SLC and the Striker 8x10 shotgun, with a range of up to 21 meters and a magazine of up to 90 rounds. The Maw proves to be one of the most consistent weapons to use. However, the difficulty in it is with the recoil. It has quite a wide spread, and if you're not used to the weapon, it can make it difficult to secure your kills. That being said, the Maw is still a very powerful weapon in the game if you like playing on Anvil. And it is the only LMG in its class, so it is the best LMG in the game. Now these are just the statistics and studies that I have done on these weapons, and then with my personal opinion thrown in on how they play in Rogue Company. If you disagree, feel free to comment and we'll talk about it. I'd like to know your guys' opinions and what you like to use in the game the most. As long as it's not the SLK6 shotgun on Shock, then I will listen to what you have to say. So again, thanks for watching. You guys can always catch my live streams 5 nights a week on Twitch at Ace Hunter TV, and you can add me in Epic Games to play with me in Rogue Company at Ace Hunter TV. I hope you all have a good night or day or evening or morning or whatever time it is for you. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Peace.